Welcome to another deep dive. We take a stack of sources and, well, we pull out the key insights just for you. Today, we're digging into a really interesting academic paper. It's called Dalit Literature, the Voice of the Oppressed. Our mission here is to unpack what this powerful literary movement is really all about, its unique characteristics and the big impact it's had on Indian society. It seems like it's way more than just a genre. Our sources are calling it a realization, even a revolutionary force. Okay, let's get into this. So to start us off, what exactly is Dalit literature? It definitely sounds like it goes deeper than just, stories and poems.
Yeah, it really does.
And what's fascinating right off the bat is how the term Dalit itself is framed here. It's defined less as a specific caste and more as a realization. It's about this shared consciousness, this awakening tied directly to the experiences, the joys, the sorrows, the struggles of people in the lowest strata of society. It's seen as quite mature literature with a strong sociological viewpoint, and it's rooted in these principles of negativity, rebellion, and a kind of loyalty to science or rational thought. Ultimately, the aim is revolutionary in its emergence. Our source points to the 1980s in Andhra Pradesh. Interestingly, it popped up alongside the feminist movement there. The paper suggests that both movements really rose because the existing progressive and revolutionary movements at the time, they just failed to properly accommodate these voices, failed to recognize the sheer plurality of Indian society.
Okay, so it's a voice for the oppressed, yeah. Specifically communities like the SCs and STs, the really downtrodden groups. How did this movement start to take shape across India more broadly?
Well, there were earlier works, definitely. You think of Mulk Raj Anand's novel Untouchable, that certainly highlighted the plight of the outcast. But the Dalit literary movement, as we kind of know it now, in its more assertive form, that was really kickstarted by writers in Marathi, Gujarati, and Canada. And a key figure, a guiding force, was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. It emerged a very clear, almost militant protest against the upper caste literature that tended to uphold, Brahmanical values in the social hierarchy.
Right, a direct challenge. And this is where it gets really interesting for me. What are the core features that make Dalit literature stand out so much from, say, mainstream traditions?
It's often described as a completely new literary norm. There's this clear disregard for traditional ideas about form, content, and style. Instead, it offers this really vibrant expression of newly awakened sensibilities. At its heart, it's a literature of protest against all kinds of exploitation, class, race, caste, occupation. Fundamentally, it's about human rights, human values.
That's powerful stuff. And it goes beyond just what they write about, doesn't it? I read that it even challenges established literary theories.
Precisely. Yeah, that's a crucial point. It actively pushes back against both Western theories. Things like Freud's psychoanalysis, Barthes' structuralism, Derrida's deconstruction, and also traditional Indian theories like Rasa and Diwani. It rejects them. And instead, it tries to build its own unique framework, what gets called Dalit aesthetics.
Wow. Does that rejection carry over into traditional Indian mythology as well? How does it engage with those foundational stories?
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't just ignore them. It actively questions and deconstructs the very foundations of Indian mythology. And looking for alternatives for their own heroes and narratives, Dalit writers have sort of rediscovered low-caste poets from the Bhakti movement. They've also found a lot of relevance in Buddhism. They even looked to figures like Ekalavya from the Mahabharata, the marginalized archer as a forefather. And Shambhuka, another Dalit figure from the Ramayana who was killed by Rama, he's actually worshipped by some as a symbol of resistance.
So it's deeply, deeply authentic then, rooted in actual lived experience. The truth of their lives is a source, basically.
Exactly right. Authenticity and liveliness are real hallmarks. Dalit writers tend to express their experiences very starkly, very realistically. They often use their own native language, the coarse, day-to-day spoken language. It's not filtered. Their language, their imagery, it comes directly from living it, not just observing it from the outside. And that allows for these incredibly genuine, raw descriptions of things like untouchability and poverty. This literature really embodies what's called Dalit consciousness. It's this deep understanding of their own history of slavery, centuries of being excluded, subjugated, dispossessed, oppressed. And because there's so much, understandably, anger about this age-old oppression, the writing can become incredibly sharp, really pointed. You see this particularly in the poetry. The core emotions bubbling up are often shame, anger, sorrow, but also, and this is important, this really indomitable hope for change.
It really sounds like a universal cry for justice in many ways. Were there influences from outside India? Any global connections or inspirations?
Yes, there were. The source mentions that Dalit writers found quite a bit of inspiration in the movements of Black people, particularly in North America and Africa. They saw parallels in the anguish, the struggle, and the demand for a just, realistic future for people who are underprivileged and outcast in society. It resonated with their own fight for dignity in India.
Let's put some names to this movement. Who are some of the significant voices we should know about from across India?
Oh, there are many important figures. Names like Mahasweta Devi, Namdeo Dasal, Daya Pawar, Arjun Dangle come to mind. Also Bama, Perumal Murugan. It's quite a rich field.
Okay, and let's zoom in a bit because the source talks a lot about Telugu Dalit literature. How did things evolve specifically in Andhra Pradesh?
Right, so in Telugu, the roots can be traced back to the really poignant poetry of Gurram Joshua. His work, Gabilam, is considered quite seminal.
Right.
And there were other early writers, people like Kusuma Dharmana and Boibimana, who were part of that first generation, writing with a strong Dalit consciousness. But the movement really exploded, gained serious momentum in Telugu during the 1980s. And this was specifically triggered by some horrific incidents, the Karamchedu and Sunduru massacres, where Dalits were brutally killed by upper caste groups. That period really ignited the protest, and sparked this alternative vision in Telugu literature. It was quite a turning point. You even saw writers from the Dandora movement, who belonged to the Madhika caste, start adding their caste name to their surnames. That was something previously only upper castes did.
That is a powerful statement, isn't it? Asserting identity like that. Who are some of the key second-generation Telugu Dalit writers who came out of that period?
Well, the list is pretty extensive. You have figures like Kolakaluri Enoch, Siva Sagar, the revolutionary poet Gadar, Kati Padmaral, Bojatharakam, Gugu Shamala, Jabaka Subhadra, many powerful voices. And the stream itself has broadened over time. It now includes voices from even more oppressed Dalit communities, like the Relis. They're fighting for their rights from within the already oppressed group. In fact, the first anthology of poems, actually in the Reli language called Dalatulu, was written by Mangalagiri Aditya Prasad. Shows how it keeps evolving.
So bringing it all together, what's the bigger impact? The source says this literary movement brought about a sea change. How exactly did it function as a vehicle for social transformation, especially in Andhra Pradesh?
Yeah, looking at the bigger picture, the source argues that Dalit literature, maybe more than any other literary movement in the last century in Telugu, has brought about just a profound shift in content, in form, everything. It has this explicit goal to change the world, to bring humanity justice to the forefront. And it uses all sorts of forms to do this: poetry, songs, stories, plays, essays.
Can you point to some concrete results, some actual transformations that came about because of this literature?
Sure. Well, first off, it seriously threatened the established Brahmanic supremacy within the literary world itself. Shook things up. Second, it played a huge role in stimulating Dalit communities towards assertion, towards protest, towards mobilizing themselves. It also got Dalit intellectuals thinking, acting. It helped create what the source calls organic intellectuals, thinkers, and leaders emerging from within the community's own ranks. And it constantly, relentlessly highlights the atrocities committed against Dalits. Through poems, stories, articles, it keeps these issues in the public eye, pushing for justice. Plus, as we discussed, it introduced this whole new set of Dalit aesthetics, challenging the old traditional ways of judging literature. And maybe most crucially, on a practical level, it really motivated many poor Dalits to pursue higher education, to aim for better careers, seeing a pathway to empowerment.
That's an incredible range of impact, really stretching far beyond just books and poems.
It really is. And apparently, these days, Dalit literature continues to be influential. It helps lay some of the theoretical groundwork for things like welfare schemes and protective laws. By bringing different issues into literary forums and to public discussion, it helps policymakers actually craft necessary laws. The source gives the example of the SC Subplan Expenditure Scheme. That's a policy designed to make sure funds specifically allocated for scheduled caste upliftment are actually spent on them. So yeah, the paper concludes pretty strongly that Dalit literature is a prime case study showing that literature's main purpose can be, and perhaps should be, social transformation.
Wow. What an absolutely incredible deep dive. We've really explored the immense power of literature when it's born from, well, profound experience and struggle. It's clear Dalit literature isn't just words on a page. It's a living, breathing force for social change, challenging norms, totally redefining aesthetics, and actually reshaping society.
And that leaves us with a thought for you, our listener. How does literature, especially this kind, born from struggle, from protest, how does it serve not just as art, but as this vital tool? A tool for advocating human rights, for shaping policy, for driving really deep societal change, even right now, today. Think about that, how a collective voice put into words can challenge and redefine the world around us. What really stands out to you from this exploration of Dalit literature's power?